Oireachtas McGrath.
Last Concola, I too am happy to be able to speak on this Children's Amendments Bill here this evening. I suppose a bill that's 19 or almost fiche bliain ag tocht or phenoculation and bill in. So it's very important that we would obviously have a review of any legislation, but we discussed that even here some weeks ago when Deputy Pringle had amendments down to I think it's the Children's Bill as well, about reviews of legislation, because clearly there was inadequacies and there was weaknesses and there was flaws, not maybe by any design or by anybody deliberately, but this can happen with legislation. The best made plans of God and man can go wrong, as we know. So the best laid piece of legislation can be challenged, can be fragile, or can be can be quite inept and not adept enough at dealing with the situations. And when you have a situation with the traumatic death of any person, but when it's a traumatic and maybe sudden or maybe violent death of a young person, it's just way more tragic and more. I know every life is the same. Every life counts, as far as I'm concerned, from the womb to the tomb. But it's in a situation with Dini Oga, it's fast or fad. And I know yourself, last Concola, beware of cases from your other when your other hat as a practicing lawyer. But I see that Michael McDowell, in fairness, Senator McDowell, he has, and Senator and Deputy O'Callaghan have had a huge input into the legislation and put forward some amendments. And the Cabinet initially approved, the proposal by the Minister for Justice, Helen McEntee, to support the Children's Amendment Bill. After independent Senator McDowell, brought it forward. However, the Minister has proceeded by making several key amendments to the bill, and obviously they'll be discussed at next stage. But the objective of the original bill are well-meaning. It aims to address the proposed negative impact of court rulings is having on families, indeed, on grieving families and grieving parents who are unable to remember their deceased child's name or legacy is very clear. The original bill's aim to give power back to those parents so that they can remember their children or family members in the way they want to. And that's very important. Couldn't be more important. And other deputies have referred to, the tragedy that we have the last 12 and a half months now with the lockdown and with people's inability to be with their loved ones when they closed their eyes for the last time or took the last breaths, or indeed to have a proper mourning time and space and time with family, and or indeed proper attendances at funerals. And it's more on true Sin. It's heart-rending. And I listen to different psychiatrists now and people well more qualified than I would be that are talking about the long-term impact of this. Indeed, the former prison governor of Mountjoy, I heard him on this morning on radio talking about, the trauma. And, he's dealt with a lot of different situations. But the trauma, we're all well aware of loved ones dying on their own and people being unable to mourn properly or the dignity of a proper funeral. And something that we are so good at in rural lands, especially, and urban Ireland. And when the chips are down, every community, whether it be urban or rural, give a huge dig out to the family who lost one. It's a big part of our culture and our heritage and our traditions in Ireland, a succoured moor and a succoured ma. So it's very important that, that there would be. So the current position under the Children's Act, it is an offence to publish anything that could lead to the identification of a child who has been the victim of a crime. And we can see that that is very, very, very important from the point of view, and we've seen court cases, maybe not our children, where names got out and got on social media, and it damages the integrity of the court process and the court system. So that's very important. In October 2020, the Court of Appeal ruled that these restrictions also apply if the child is deceased or that has already turned 18. The Children's Amendment Bill 2020 will amend sections 252 of the Children's Act 2001, which the Court of Appeal ruled on. and that's very important. It provides identification of the deceased child in criminal procedures for the offence against the child. And any crime against a child is a rather heinous crime, and we can see why that's there. But we need to try and, I suppose, get the balance of allowing the family have their proper respect and love continue and grieving process, and also deal with a person of his charge before, or persons of the charge before the court. The bill, when enacted, aims to allow grieving parents to speak publicly about the deceased child. At the time of the court rejected an application by the Irish Times and several other media outlets to allow them to identify a woman who killed her 3-year-old child. She was found not guilty of murder in reasons of insanity following a short trial last year. And Sin Rodo fought freshen. That's but look, people's obviously, if it's insanity, nobody can explain for it. No one can legislate for it either. But it's so vital that we have this legislation passed, and I think there is goodwill right throughout the House, and to try and make this bill as robust and as sensitive and understanding and well-meaning as possible. And as I said, 19 years is a long time to wait for, but we are here now, thankfully, and we need to get it as best we can and have it passed without delay. The bill was introduced after the Court of Appeal ruling that the dead child cannot be identified when someone is charged. So that was bound to happen, but it has happened. And before that trial began, 2 High Court judges ordered that the victim should not be identified, and this meant that the woman could not be named. And look, we understand the very good reasons for that. But look, I think we're here now, and we are where we are. And in spite of COVID, it's progressing through the House. I certainly don't intend to delay it or hold it up in any shape, make, or form. But I think we should Godspeed, and hopefully it will go through all the stages here of committee stage, and will be passed, and some good amendments taken on and discussed, obviously, and debated. And hopefully there'll be a review clause put in, that there will be a review of it as to how it beds in and how it's functioning, and what impact it's having on trials, and indeed, above all, the impact it's having on grieving families, and the name of the loved one that can be, spoken about and remembered, and celebrate their life, short and all as it may have been. But we definitely have to have a review, and not a review after 6 months, probably after 2 years. So I commend the bill to the House.